This Day in Sports History. And welcome back to another edition of This Day in Sports History. I am Steve White, your host for the next few minutes as we travel around the world of sports and what happened on this day in sports history. It is December 4th, and on this day we had losing streaks continued and winning streaks snapped. Creamsicle nightmares on one hand and an orange dream of a day on the other. And Barry Sanders had one of the best days of his athletic life, but those watching him do it did not quite understand why. I've got explanations for all of that, plus a non-sports fun fact for you true crime fans out there. Stay with me until the end. This is going to be a fun one. This episode is brought to you by the Sterling Soap Company. Sterling Soap is 100% natural, and with a variety of bath soaps, shave soaps, beard balm, lotions, cologne, and many more personal care products in a large variety of scents, you're sure to find something that's perfect for you or that special someone in your life. Check them out at sterlingsoap.com. Let's start with what happened on this day in 1977. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers may have looked like the best team in the NFL. They just didn't play like it. Who can deny that when the creamsicle-clad Bucs came running out of the tunnel that they didn't look sweet in those unis? But once the ball went into the air, they played like the lovable losers that they were. This was year number 2 for Tampa in the NFL, and they had yet to win a regular season football game. They'd won in the preseason, but of course those games don't count for anything, so here they were in Week 12 of the regular season, losers of their previous 25 games, taking on the Chicago Bears. The Bucs actually played some pretty good football in this one. The Bears' Walter Payton was chasing the 2,000-yard plateau with the hopes of passing O.J. Simpson. He needed some big rushing days in the last 3 weeks, but he didn't get them against Leroy Selman and the Bucs defense on this day. Payton carried the ball 33 times for 101 yards, and he scored the game's only touchdown in the fourth quarter. The Bucs had Ricky Bell carrying the rock for them that day, and he set a franchise record with 95 yards rushing. Selman disrupted the Bears' passing game as well, sacking Bob Avellini twice. The Bears won the game 10-0, and it was Tampa's 26th consecutive loss. The losing streak is still the NFL record, but a new dawn was on the horizon the following weekend. Let's go to the opposite end of that spectrum and talk about what happened on this day in 1971 when the 5th-ranked Penn State Nittany Lions brought their 15-game winning streak to Knoxville to take on the number 12 Tennessee Volunteers. Now, in Knoxville, the name Majors holds a pretty special place in the hearts of Tennessee fans. And prior to this game, the Majors family was recognized for their contributions to the volunteer program. Johnny Majors played tailback for Tennessee in the 50s, and he finished up as the runner-up in Heisman voting in 1956. Now, at this point in time, Johnny was the head coach of Iowa State, but he would come back home to be the head coach of the Vols beginning in 1977 for a 15-year stint on the sideline. His brother Billy had played for the Vols in the mid to late 50s and went on to play for the Buffalo Bills before coming back to Tennessee as an assistant coach. His other brother Bobby was the youngest of the Majors boys, and he was a senior on this 1971 team, playing defensive back and returning kicks. In this game, he returned several punts and racked up 195 return yards, including this electrifying kick return for a touchdown.
Back deep, Bobby Majors at the 45 of Penn State, the 40, the 35, the 30. Look at Bobby go! What a day he's having. Touchdown, Tennessee! 45 yards on a day that the Majors family is being honored here at Tennessee. Holy mackerel.
And as you heard ABC's Chris Schenkel mention there, Bobby had a great day all around, helping the defense force 6 turnovers against a Nittany Lion offense that was led by Franco Harris that season. Now, one of those big plays was a Conrad Graham 76-yard scoop and score in the first quarter to put Tennessee up early. Linebacker Jackie Walker had a pick six late in this one for another Vols score. The Nittany Lions had been the most prolific offense that season, but seemed to butt heads with a brick wall most of the day. Tennessee won this one easily, 31-11. The loss ruined Penn State's shot at a national championship, and they wound up in the Cotton Bowl against Texas instead. Tennessee went on to beat Arkansas in the Liberty Bowl a few weeks later. On this day in 1988, Barry Sanders put on a show for a crowd that mostly did not understand what they were watching. Sanders made a career out of baffling would-be tacklers, leaving many grasping at air in a vain attempt to bring him down. Not only did he do that in great measure on this day, but the folks sitting in the stands were also not really certain what they were seeing. Oklahoma State and Texas Tech, along with the Grambling Band and the Miami Dolphins cheerleaders, were all in Tokyo, Japan to play this game. This was the Coca-Cola Classic, which was an annual game between two college teams played in Japan, beginning in 1977, and it ran until 1993. Texas Tech had agreed to give up its home game, and Oklahoma State paid the Red Raiders $50,000 to ease the financial sting of giving up a game in Lubbock. Even though this annual game had been going on for 11 years by this point, and several Japanese universities had played football going back to the 1930s, the crowd at the brand new Tokyo Dome on this day were not really knowledgeable football fans. For most of them, it was the first game they'd ever seen. They cheered at odd times, and more than just the nuances were lost on them. Oklahoma State's quarterback Mike Gundy, who would later become the head coach in Stillwater, said the atmosphere during the game felt so different than anything he'd ever been involved with. So even though Sanders was having one of the best days of any collegiate in the history of collegiate football, the Japanese fans watching could not really appreciate what they were seeing. But what they saw was a shootout. Sanders' day got off to an early start, and I'm not talking about in the game. He had been hauled out of bed in the early morning hours to go to a local television station for a satellite appearance during the Heisman Trophy presentation. Of course, Sanders won the Heisman nearly 7,000 miles away from the downtown athletic club in New York City. He was a junior at the time, and what he did in this game was what everybody would later see when he became a Detroit Lion. He took handoffs, found a tiny sliver of a hole, and he bust through it and dodged linebackers for double-digit gains. He took tosses, turned the corner, and made defensive backs look ridiculous, and he caught swing passes from Gundy and turned them into points. Sanders rolled up 257 yards rushing and over 300 all-purpose yards, and he scored 4 times. Texas Tech had an aerial attack to match Sanders' ground game, and the game went back and forth until Sanders capped the day with his final touchdown to give the Cowboys the 45-42 win. Now, this game closed out the regular season for both teams, and since the NCAA was not counting postseason bowl games in career stats yet, it makes Sanders' 2,628 yards, that set the NCAA record for rushing yards in a season, even that more impressive. That number is still the record, as is his 239 yards per game average from that season. He finished the year with 39 rushing touchdowns, which is still number 1, but Wisconsin's Monty Ball equaled that in 2011. On this day in 1960, we had a couple of great things happen in a game between the Baltimore Colts and the Detroit Lions. First, Johnny Unitas set a mark that would stand in the NFL record books for more than 50 years. Second, this was a classic game that came down to a variety of fireworks in the final minute. Now, Johnny Unitas is a football legend, one of the all-time greats to ever play the game. Yet, he was underestimated for much of his younger life. Most colleges thought the 6-foot, 145-pound high school Unitas was too small to play in college, and yet he wound up in Louisville and was a star for the Cardinals. The Pittsburgh Steelers drafted him, but they didn't think he was smart enough to run a pro offense. When he signed on with the Baltimore Colts in 1956, though, Coach Weeb Eubank saw promise in the now 6'1", 190-pound Unitas and gave him a chance. Well, on this day in 1960, Unitas threw a couple of touchdown passes to Lenny Moore, marking the 47th consecutive game in which he had thrown at least one touchdown pass. Moore's second TD reception of the day was a diving catch in the end zone, giving the Colts the lead with 15 seconds to play. Colts fans were so excited, and figuring the game to be over, they rushed the field, mobbing Moore and others. Order took a little bit of time to be restored, and the Lions came back on the field. With 4 seconds remaining in this one, though, Earl Morrall connected with Jim Gibbons, who sprinted the distance to the end zone, shocking the Colts and silencing the crowd at Memorial Stadium. The Lions won 20-15, and that loss deflated the Colts. The following week, Baltimore was on the road at Los Angeles playing the Rams. The Colts played a lackluster game and they lost it 10-3, snapping Unitas' consecutive games touchdown streak. The 47-game streak would stand alone for 52 years until New Orleans' Drew Brees topped it and bettered it by a few games in 2012. Brees' streak was stopped at 54 games, which is the current record. Unitas' record was more than just a spectacular number, though. He became the league's most popular player during that stretch, revolutionizing the quarterback position in the process, and the streak helped raise fan and media interest in the game to a point to make it sustainable. And on this day in 1961, Floyd Patterson knocked out little-known and little-respected Tommy McNeely to retain the heavyweight title. This was not much of a fight at Maple Leaf Gardens in Toronto on this night. The first 2 rounds were a lot of clinches and soft punches. Patterson came out in the third and he knocked McNeely down 5 times, and yet the fight continued for another round. In the fourth, McNeely's best shot was actually a headbutt that stung Floyd a little bit. Patterson came back and knocked McNeely down another 3 times before ring official Jersey Joe Walcott called the fight 2 minutes and 57 seconds into the fourth. It was not an impressive performance for the champion in defense of his title against a guy that most thought he shouldn't have been fighting in the first place. Sonny Liston fought this same night in Philadelphia, and he watched Floyd's fight with McNeely from his dressing room. He was itching for his shot at the title, a shot that would come the following September. And time now for today's That's Got Nothing to Do with Sports fun fact. In 1892, Argentina's Francisca Rojas became the first person to ever be convicted from fingerprint evidence. After the murder of her 2 children, she pointed the finger at her neighbor, but a bloody fingerprint found on a door in her home was confirmed to be hers, and when confronted with the evidence, she confessed to the crime. That's all I've got for you today. Come on back tomorrow for another edition of This Day in Sports History. This has been an original Thrive Suite production.